covering the NFC East previews right now. Let's move on to now the New York Football Giants, Joe. All right, here we go.
The new and improved.
The new, and are they improved? All right, they can't get any worse than last season.
Are you kidding me? Look at what they did.
That's true.
Come on, we're going to dive into it right now.
That's true.
So let's just start off with the draft, right? Like a lot of people were kind of speculating. What are the Giants going to do? Are they going to trade up and get a quarterback and have him compete against Daniel Jones? Like there was a lot of intrigue with the Giants in this draft, what they were possibly going to do. And they ended up, they didn't get a trade agreed to. They didn't get to trade up and get a quarterback that like a lot of people thought was going to happen. Instead, they stood where they were and they ended up taking one of the best wide receivers in this draft. And some people believe the best wide receiver in the draft with Malik Nabers from LSU. So I think they got themselves a stud at wide receiver and something that has been missing sorely from this Giants team. Yes, we do know that they've had their woes with the offensive line help and issues there, but man, this position has been so decimated with just not getting an influx of talent, of young personnel, and now they nail it with Malik Nabers. I think this dude is going to be year one as a rookie he's going to be dangerous for any defense. And you're already seeing it at a Giants camp where you see the chemistry building between Daniel Jones and Nabers, whether it be in coverage, just the chemistry is building so much between those two that I definitely see some success there for the Giants this season. Nabers going to get plenty of opportunities in terms of catching the ball, scoring touchdowns and what have you, but it starts right there with Nabers. After that, you can kind of like say, well, we got Nabers. We got Nabers. Yeah. So you look at the veterans that have been there before, Darius Slayton, nobody's really excited about him. Right now he's penciled in as a starter. I hope for God's sake that, because we've seen flashes in training camp just now with Jalen Hyatt kind of making some big plays. And I'm in hopes for the Giants anyways, that Hyatt is going to end up taking over Slayton's spot to finally start for the Giants. And then you got Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot, who I'm kind of like a favorite of his. Like I really do like his talent. I think this guy could be something special for the Giants going forward. And then they also got guys in the back end like Isaiah Hodgins, who's been there before. They got Isaiah McKenzie, who they drafted, an older speed type wide receiver. And then there's extra depth beyond that are all trying to make the team. But what I do like is the fact that they still have some young depth here. They also got some veterans. I just hope that they get the right mix right. And I believe it should be Nabers, Hyatt, and Robinson, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there too. I mean, I always thought it would be, and I'm wondering what's going on that's holding Jalen Hyatt back. Is it him? He's something that we're just
making plays in training camp,
and that's what I saw too. He is making plays because, again, what is our lad seeing that we're not here? Because we've heard the talk throughout the whole training camp, even off season. Darius Slayton again, potentially being caught, traded, whatever. He's even heard, we've even heard that, hey, if I'm not making, starting roster, that I demand to be traded. Yeah, go right ahead. We're not going to get anything. What, a bag of peanuts for you? I mean, what? Oh my goodness, we're shaking in our boots. You got some serious leverage. A guy that it was nice to see in his rookie season with the spot that you ended up drafting him in. It was a pleasant surprise, but since then has been awful suspect in that big playoff game that they're in 2 seasons ago. Big catch that he just flat out dropped. It was to help seal the deal on the game and just dropped it.
That's right.
And that's what lingers, I think, throughout everybody. And that's what you really need in big moments to perform like that. And he didn't. Like you said, looking at the rest of the guys, there's some good talent here. I like the depth. When you talked about what they did a little bit last season with some of the guys, Paris Campbell and stuff like that, he had some pretty good depth. I like the depth this season a lot more than what they've got going on. Again, just still having Isaiah Hodgins, Jalen Hyatt there, of course, but Isaiah McKenzie, Miles Boykin, Allen Robinson even there. So having this stuff behind there, I'm interested to see what this final starting roster is going to be. And what we're going to see out of Wan'Dale Robinson is big for me as well, just because he's been plagued with injuries. It's nice that you're excited. I'm excited too, but I mean, I would like to see him a lot more than we have here. Because again, when he's out there, it seems like he can make some plays, and you don't get to see him enough. So that's one thing I would like to see this coming season with Daniel Jones on top of the Malik Nabers. Again, you talked about it, getting that guy key right there in that part of the draft early on, getting a receiver, a true number one that Daniel Jones can rely on, and go up and just throw one of those throw it up balls, and he can catch it. And this is that guy, you know what I mean? That's what's great about having him there in this roster here, because you didn't have that for the past couple seasons to help out Daniel Jones in those kinds of rough moments. But
there's an opportunity right now for Hyatt and Nabers. If they are to team up, you might potentially get two guys that can do that same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And to tell you what, I've seen some really good throws by Daniel Jones in this camp too, putting it right where the defender can't even get, like on the number. So not even the fact that just errant passes at all. He's just throwing it out there.
You can do that when you don't have pressure.
That is true too.
You know what I mean? Like, it is training camp, everybody. Like, it's not, we have to temper our expectations a little bit when we watch it, but what you can notice is the fact that there's chemistry being built there. The accuracy is there. The ball placement is there. The playmaking ability of these receivers are there. You know, we're seeing some of these receivers anyway, make some big time plays over the head of defenders and just getting the play done. Then we're going to switch our sights over to offensive line. Offensive line, this is kind of like that next critical position group that is in desperate need of improvement, flat out improvement. Yes, they still have Andrew Thomas. He has improved immensely since entering the NFL. He's locking down that left tackle spot. But what they did end up going out is they went out and got some veterans. They got a veteran presence in guys like Jermaine Illuminor, who can play multiple positions across the offensive line and play them all extremely well. And then they end up bringing, obviously, back is healthy once again. John Michael Schmitz, he was due to be the starter last year, but ended up getting hurt, leaving last season. And then you also look at guys like John Runyon from Green Bay, the Packers, a guy that has been with the Packers, kind of like been in development mode there in Green Bay. Now finds his way to the Giants. They're actually giving him a legit shot to earn that starting right guard spot. And currently, anyway, Evan Neal is locked in at right tackle. Unfortunately, though, he's on the PUP list right now. He's still a little banged up, can't return to practice just yet. But that all being said, I think what you're looking at here is that they filled a couple of holes that were critical that they didn't have answers to in free agency, adding these vets. And now when you look at this team, even on paper, it's definitely improved on the offensive line. I don't know how much more improved it is. And that's why we got to wait to see some preseason games and see week one of the regular season to see just how much it's gotten better. Also, when you look at the backups, they ended up adding guys like Greg Van Roten, who's with Carmen Bracillo back with the Raiders. He follows him to the Giants, the offensive line coach there. Solid lineman, quite possibly could start in case John Runyon kind of doesn't make an impression. Aaron Stinney, I think, is an interesting signing too. He right now is a backup, but he started for the Buccaneers for quite some time. So they have, even as backups, they still have guys that could fill in and start if their numbers called upon. So I think they've done a good job improving that spot of the ball as well. So it's going to give Giants fans a little bit more confidence into the season. Now, there's definitely a ton of Giants fans that are speculative, and they're just like, well, they tried to do the same thing last year and it fell apart. Well, maybe, but I'm telling you right now, they got real good veterans. They're not the flashiest of names. They're not these big time left tackles that you hear about all the time in the news because they just signed a mega $1 million deal. These are guys that are just road graders. They're just vets that have been around for quite some time, and they get the job done. So I got some confidence in their offensive line.
I'm glad you do, Joe. But the one thing I would say about the New York Giants and their offensive line, I'm glad that Ben Bredesen is no longer on this team now, because he was
he just signed an extension with the Ravens.
Oh my gosh, dude, he was so terrible, and so God bless him. Goodbye. But that's the only thing that I think I'm afraid of, because this is what the Giants do. The Giants do get some of those gritty veterans that you're talking about, but a lot of times they're past their prime. So then they end up being like, a problem, you know what I mean? And giving up those sacks and things like that. You're getting them too little too late, and they're not building, that offensive line. And that's where the Giants have always been better. If you look at the Super Bowl teams, it's a team that they've built. So that's the only thing I worry about this. But like you said, I think it is an improvement. Like Ben Bredesen is gone, so that's an improvement automatically for me. So I'm excited to see what these guys can do. They just need to give him a little more time here, and for Daniel Jones to get the ball out there. And I'm excited, when we look at this offense, how different it's going to look. We've already seen some different looks here in camp, and what Brian Dable's offense looks like. A slimmed down Brian Dable, by the way, man, that guy looks good. And it can't be any worse than what Kafka did last year too, and they were 30th ranked in offense. They got to turn this thing around. They got Malik Nabers on top of it. Brian Dable's offense. The one thing I will say too, weak in the tight end spot, especially that Darren Waller retired. I would have liked them trying to get a little more depth there, but we'll see how much they really involve the tight ends in this offense anyways.
You got to remember too that Daniel Bellinger, he missed most of last season, really didn't get to further develop or show off his talent last year when with Waller being hurt. So Bellinger getting another shot, coming back for his third year, looks like, honestly, or second year, it looks like honestly that Daniel Bellinger is going to be that very interesting piece of blocking / receiving type tight end. Like he's definitely a talented player, an athletic tight end. I think he's going to play out well for the Giants. And then they go ahead and they draft in the 4th round Theo Johnson, one of my favorite tight ends coming out of Penn State, who guy is gigantic. Like he's one of the bigger tight ends in football, 6'6", 270 something pounds. And you wouldn't think about it, but you're like 270, 6'6". He's kind of slow, isn't he? No, he's actually fast. And that's the scary part, is that he's got this big, gigantic size, but can block and also just go out for passes. So the one thing that he has to work on, though, and I'm sure the Giants are working on it currently, is that his route running needs to get a little bit better. But other than that, I really do. I have confidence in both of these tight ends for the Giants coming into the season. I think they're going to do well. And by no means in Brian Daboll's offense, the tight end isn't that honed in. It's not like that much of a threat in his offense. It's spotty here and there. So they're not going to be counting on these tight ends to make all the plays. So that's where they haven't had wide receivers. And now that they finally looks like that they might have some talent there, they're going to be able to kind of spread the ball around, and then opening up these weaker holes in the defense where these tight ends are going to kind of just take advantage of. So I really like the at least the 2 tight ends I have confidence in. After that, it's kind of like you really don't know what you're going to get. These are camp bodies. Maybe they can make the roster, what have you. Maybe they even look for a veteran after this is all said and done to complete it. But
before we get into Daniel Jones talk, I want to say hi to Mike Tackett. Mike Tackett's in the house. He's got a question for us.
Hi,
it's
Mike.
Funny. We talked about this before we started getting to the AFC preview episodes, and it's funny that he's going to pose the question to us here. He has a couple of other different things about it, but here you go. He says, which non-playoff team from last year do you guys seeing making the biggest push for the postseason? For me, it has to be the Jets or the Bengals.
I would say the Jets. I definitely would say the Jets. The Bengals have been there before. Like the Bengals are capable of doing it again this year. It's not like something where like, oh, there's no shot, the window closed or anything like that. No, I still think that they're one of those teams that are in that group, that cluster to make it. But the Jets haven't been there, and jeez, I mean, I can't.
Since
if they're gonna
Sanchez,
right? If they're going to make it to or win the division or not, just make it to the playoffs. It's now. They have Rodgers. They have a much improved offensive line. They have really good weapons to throw to. Right. They got a good young running back to run the ball. And their defense, we all know, is top 5. And they've improved that too. So, yeah, it has to be the Jets in my mind.
Yeah, it's a good question. And when you think about it, like you said, you can't bring up the Bengals because they've been there before. You know what I mean? It's too recent. So you're talking about biggest push. I would have to probably say the Jets too.
You could even argue the Dolphins.
No,
you can.
No, that weren't in the playoffs, right? Non-playoff team from last year. Dolphins were in the playoffs last year.
All right, give me all the teams that didn't make the playoffs, and I'll tell you another team.
What about the Titans, Joe? What do you think if the Titans sneak somehow into the playoffs? Isn't that a pretty big push here again from what they've gone through? They don't have Derrick Henry anymore, but Will Levis now, year 2 as a starter. See what they can do now with another additional weapons here. Wide receiver. How about the Titans? How about that? Why not? That's a sneaky pick right there.
Possibly. I mean, it's possible, but they do have a new,
I guess,
they have a new regime. So there's a lot of teaching going on too. Like I still think that they can make a push for that division. I got one. I don't think they'll win the division, but I think that they can make a push.
I got one. You know what? That wasn't there, but then returning that wasn't there last season, the Jacksonville Jaguars. How about that?
I disagree.
There you go. Well, that's mine. The Jags. How about that?
I definitely don't think they're going to make it.
All right. So let's get back to the NFC East and the New York Giants. We talked about the offense, not so much about Daniel Jones, but everybody pretty much knows what's got to get done. He's got to show something again just to prove that he can stay on the team. Depending on whatever, talk about money and all other bullshit. You're already past that. We're talking about being able to produce. You have weapons now under Brian Daboll's offense. It's time to get this team cooking here, do something here, and they got to get it done now, or it could be Brian Daboll's head on the chopping block pretty soon too. We've followed and seen what the Giants are looking like in the offseason on Hard Knocks and stuff like that, and we've heard the ownership talk about this type of situation too. They're not afraid to move on again and try and rebuild again to get something going here. So it's go time for this offense. It should be better. You can't get much worse than 30th. You also got 31st, 32nd, but come on, you got to be able to do something here with what you got going on. And I'm excited to see what this defense can do this season.
The one thing that I can say got worse for the Giants is their running backs. That's the one thing. Devin Singletary, I don't have any confidence in at all. Yes, he had a successful season with Houston, but honestly, like for the Giants, he's not the type of running back that you normally see with this offense, where you have a guy who's very dynamic, who has the size, who can break tackles, who can also make people miss. Singletary doesn't really break tackles that often. Like he gets shoestring tackled a lot of times where a guy just puts his arm out and he trips over it. So definitely a gifted athlete in terms of being out in the open, catching the ball, the backfield. I feel like that's where he's going. That's his niche. That's like where he's really good at yards after the catch. But as far as between the tackles, I don't know. I don't think he's the right guy for them. And then you got guys like Eric Gray that they drafted in 23, who obviously he's going to make a play for the starting job. And the rookie that they drafted this year, currently in the 5th round, and Tyrone Tracy Jr., who I actually really like this kid. I just don't think he has enough experience at the running back position, because in college he played it for 1 year. The other 3 years he played as wide receiver. So definitely another kind of like very well-built type of body type for running back, but also he can break tackles. He's stronger than you think. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe Tyrone can make a name for himself, or at least carve out some serious reps the start of the season.
Devin Singletary, he has success in this particular offense, Brian Daboll's offense. So I could see where it kind of works for them. Again, he's not no Saquon Barkley like they had. So this is what you're dealt with. But I think he can be effective in what this offense can do.
He had success in this offense?
Yes.
When did he play?
When he played with the Bills when Brian Daboll was there.
He did?
Yeah. And then, so now
I don't think he's that good.
Well, he's not as good as Saquon Barkley. We already know that, but I mean, he can work in this offense, and we already know that the running backs aren't very good here. I don't think Gray's going to push for anything. If anything, like I said, I'm interested to see what Tracy can kind of do for this team. But after Singletary, I mean, it gets even worse. So I don't think running back is going to be a major focal point of this offense, though. I think there's going to
well, you need it.
I understand that. But that's what I mean. He has been successful with Brian Daboll. So why wouldn't he even think that he could potentially do it?
What did he do with the Bills?
Last year? He did very well, running the ball.
Did he have over 1,000 yards or anything?
Yes, he did. But it's like I said, he's not Saquon Barkley. I'm on board with you like that. Like I said, I'm not high on Singletary, but to say that he's not going to have success and does not know what to do in his offense, I think is just wrong. Paul Maddie's in the house. He says, greetings from Playa Linda Beach. Hey, it's been a long time since I don't know if we've even had Paul Maddie on this show. Have we, Joe?
No.
Pleasure to have you on this show here, Paul Maddie. Pleasure to have you. And Mike Tackett says, here you go, Joe. He's got the non-playoff teams. Jets, Patriots, Colts, Jags, Titans, Bengals, Raiders. Okay. Broncos, Chargers, Giants, Commanders, Bears, Vikings, Saints, Falcons. What about the Falcons, Joe? What do you think about that?
The Falcons, I think they have a shot. They definitely have a legit shot because they have the right quarterback to lead those young, talented weapons.
Right.
And a good offensive line is already there. So they have the recipe, at least on offense. Like the defense is actually top 15 there. If I say bottom top 10 type style defense, they were actually really good last year when they were healthy early on in the season. But when you look at them now, like they still got to figure some things out. They did add to that defensive side of the ball, and I do think that they could make a push. Maybe not win the division, but man, they're going to be one of those serious contenders for sure.
Yeah, it's easier to see when you got the teams out there, where they get a better idea of stuff. Because even, you get the Vikings out there, the Seahawks, Cards, Panthers. I'm not sold on any of that, but a lot of people would probably even mention, because they're so high on Caleb Williams, about the Bears potentially being that non-playoff team that can, go all the way, or at least into the playoffs. That seems like the team. When I talked to Brian Noe earlier tonight, that's kind of what I was wondering, if he was going to say some of those, because a lot of people are big, ultra hyped on the Bears right now. It's almost out of proportion, like, wow, what made you guys flip the script like that much, with this team? It can't be all just Caleb Williams on there. I know they added, weapons here and things like that, but for people to just, say now they're all of a sudden they're going to make a push in the playoffs, I would pump the brakes a little bit on that one. Mike Tackett says also, how is Matt Patricia not coaching defense anywhere? I'd argue that he's better than more experienced than New York's new DC, Shane Bowen. That would be interesting. Yeah, that is kind of a head scratcher there too, because I thought he did pretty well as a defensive coordinator. But
he did until he started going team to team. Like his defense never played well with the Lions when he was a head coach. When he came back to New England, he still didn't do anything there. They already had their guy, and then now that you look at him. What you did here before he got ousted as a head coach is that players don't respond to him. Players don't like him. He's just like this guy that's very anti-personal and is all about business. And I get it. You're coaching. Like it shouldn't be about getting along with any of the players or whatnot. But he rubbed a lot of players the wrong way, and it kind of like had a ripple effect where nobody wanted to listen to him. And if you can't get the players to buy in to your system or what you're trying to teach, it's just not going to work anyway. So I feel like the league probably saw that, heard about it, and they're just like, well, he does run a sophisticated defensive scheme, which is hard to teach. And then if your teacher isn't that good to kind of respond to the new talent coming in, then it's just never going to work.
All right, we're still talking about here the NFC East and the New York Giants. So just focus on the defense real quick, and then we'll move on to the next team.
Yeah, the one thing is maybe Devin Singletary can reach 1,000 yards this year. Maybe we'll see. It does depend on the offensive line.
Right. And I don't even expect that even out of him this year. You know what I mean? Because again, I know he's just kind of that guy to be there now, knows the system. Until
he does know the system.
They're going to probably draft a running back this next
they
season.
have to.
So that's the idea. So, but that's what I'm saying. He's just going to be a nice person to fit into this system that he knows, and I think he's going to do okay with it.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I'll say in his 5-year career so far, that he just still hasn't been able to eclipse 1,000 yards. And some of that yardage is catching the ball. It's not really running the ball. So it'll be interesting to see. I know he's a familiar face for Brian, and maybe they're hoping they can get a little bit out of him, but we'll see how it all shakes out. I kind of hope that Tyrone kind of gets some playing time too. Defensively, defense is going to be a little bit different though. They're still pretty stout now that they got that trade for Brian Burns. They bring him over to play opposite. They're injured, or Kayvon Thibodeau is injured right now, missing some practice time. But he's looking to play opposite Brian Burns, which I feel like is a really good tandem, and two players that are going to feed off each other, definitely going to be attacking the quarterbacks and getting after the running backs in the backfield. But other than that, like you look at the interior of this defensive line too, where it looks like they're going to be going to a 3-4 scheme. They got some big bull bodies up front where they're gonna eat up double blocks, and you're just gonna not be able to. You're not gonna be able to move them. They're just gonna be stuck in the trenches. Raheem Nunez Roches, who came over from Tampa Bay, formerly of the 49ers, a very good D tackle, but has the size to play 3-4 D end. And then you have Dexter Lawrence, of course, locking down that nose tackle position. Jordan Phillips, who I really do like. I think this is a good signing for the Giants, bringing him from the Bills to be that extra D end or even D tackle that you want to call him in that front three there. I think that right there, to couple that with Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden, who both have showed promise with the Giants, and you have Burns and Thibodeau rushing off the edge, I feel like their front seven is going to be very good for this defense. After that, you look at the corners, you look at the back end of this defense. You got Tyler Nubin, who they drafted in the second round to fill in that safety, that void there at safety for the Giants. I actually really like Tyler Nubin coming out of the draft. I thought that he was the best safety, hands down. And that's why he ended up getting taken in the second round. But then you also got guys returning too, like a Devontae Banks, who started in the beginning, but then ended up losing his job, as the season progressed. But I still just think it's a confidence thing. Being new to the league last year, I think he's going to develop. He's going to be just fine this year, gaining some confidence. And then other than that, you see a lot of youth in this secondary. So with that youth in the secondary, it's this season, I feel like for the Giants, at least on the back end, there might be some communication issues from time to time where a guy thought he was supposed to be somewhere else and he wasn't. He was supposed to stay home, and those type of things are going to have to iron out over time. But all in all, I think it's going to be basically throw them out, trial by fire, until they can come together as a unit.
Yeah, again, I mean, I like the way the look of this defense looks a lot better, especially once we got Brian Burns here in the house. I mean, that was a big add for the defense. I am interested to see how it is going to look, because even like Mike Tackett said, different defensive coordinator. I don't think Wink Martindale was part of the problem at all last season.
No,
that just
not
they
at
kind
all.
of butted heads and things like that towards the end, and somebody had to pay the price at one point. Kind of an unsung hero here for this defense, Cordell Flott. This guy has been on the team for a few years now, and not really expected to do a whole lot here, and then now has found his way into the starting position here and looking really good here. But one thing I think we do need to see here, Deonte Banks, he's got to be our number one, our starter that's going to be on the number one receiver. And he got kind of, like you're talking about trial by fire. That was last year. He did good at times, but then other times he was hung out to dry. He needs to do a little better this year, grow into that. But I think this pass rush that they have now this season is going to help some of that too, because again, not getting the ability to get to the quarterback leaves them out there longer to try and cover and things like that. And that's when you run into trouble and stuff. So I think the additions that they had on top of it, especially a healthy Dexter Lawrence here too, would be good for this team here. And I see better things, especially even a healthy Micah McFadden, because he made some really big plays before he got injured last season. So he's one of those ball hawks that, even in the run game, he like evaluates the play and can get to where the ball is and make that tackle. And that's what's big for these guys, is those tackles.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.